So this is the story all about when Harry met Larry. Basically, it's a story about hybrid selling. But before we go into that, let's go back to the very beginning. The story started in 2019. At the end of the year, Harry and Larry had got this habit of getting together. Now, before we move on, let's just understand who Harry and Larry are. Harry and Larry are two sales guys. They've been in sales a little while, they're both pretty successful, and they like to meet up and just reflect on what it is they've done over the course of the year. And that's exactly how the conversation went. Harry said to Larry, "You know what, mate? I think we've had a pretty good time of this sales malarkey. We've been doing this, what, for 10 years now? And we've both been pretty successful." "Yeah, we have," said Larry. "It's been pretty cool. We've earned a lot along the way, and we've earned a lot by learning a lot. Let's think about all the stuff we've done." "Yeah, let's. Can you remember when we went back to that very first training session that we got involved with? We went on that course back in, where was it? Somewhere in the middle of the UK. And we learned all the basics of sales." "Oh, yeah, that was really cool. I remember that first time that we'd been out. And so we had a ball. Can you remember that first night when—" "Yes, I can. I can, and I don't need reminding of it. Let's think about the stuff that we covered." "Yeah, okay, yeah, it was a good night, you're right. But really, the stuff that we learned, the essentials for success, it was amazing. It's set us up, hasn't it, for the last 10 years? Think about the stuff we covered. We covered benefit selling, so we understand the difference between features, advantages, benefits, and that customers only really buy what's in it for them. That they have to appreciate how they can get something from what it is we're selling. Otherwise, what's the point? And it's our job to be able to articulate this and to be able to help people understand it well. The basis for sales, isn't it, really? Absolutely, mate. I can remember there's no point really in going out and prospecting if we don't understand that and we can't help customers. What would be the point? And again, prospecting, that's changed, hasn't it, over the last 10 years or so? Yeah, it used to be the whole cold calling, but there's so many different things. You're right, but the basis is still the same. I mean, really, we've got to be thinking, going back to benefits, what can we do for customers and how can we get that message across so we can set up a decent meeting? And decent meetings, yeah, absolutely. The various elements to it. I mean, who knew when we first went back to that training that there were so many parts to it? You know, building rapport, so recognizing people's personality styles, how we opened up to get people's attention, how we then show interest in people, how we ask them questions to really understand them, to understand their needs, understand their wants, how we could then put together our ideas in a way that's relevant to them, and then to make sure we close, make sure we get some kind of advancement in the sale to keep things moving. There's a lot to it, and I don't think people really understand that that's what professional sales is about. I think you're right, mate. You know, people just don't. And we've not even really started because once we've understood that, we then need to think about how we propose, how we present, how we get our message across. I always use proposals now. I always put together that written document which shows that I understand the company, I understand their needs, I understand what I can do to help them, so help them to understand that, explain why us, and then justify why we're pricing it. And I know that when I go into a presentation, I can do a really good job. I know you can do a good job. And actually, I've seen you do it. Your class act, yeah. Your presentations, they've always got a structure. It's always beginning, middle, and end, and it's very clear. You spike at the beginning, you get people engaged in what it is you're going to say. You keep it animated, you keep it interesting. You keep people thinking through what it is that we're going to do. That's really cool, mate. I appreciate what you're doing. So what else did we learn on that? I'm just trying to think back now. Well, we learned how to be professionals, if you remember. So we learnt about how we plan, how we set ourselves up to manage what's basically our own business. So we think about territory, we think about the customers we need to go and speak to, we think about how we can maximize our time. Remember, the guy was talking about self-management. It dispelled that myth about being time management that was important, but really it's how we managed ourselves, focusing on the priority elements that would really make a difference. Yeah, self-management absolutely makes sense to me. Yeah, I think I'm still pretty good at that sort of stuff. Can you remember the other training we went on? The stuff that followed up about, what was it? Was it 6 months, about a year after that? Oh, yeah, developing your sales experience. Didn't you let yourself down at that training as well? No, I didn't. That's a made-up story. I never did what everybody said. Let's just think about what it is that we talked about. Well, I remember it really built on a lot of those essentials. But the thing that struck me a lot is that we spend a little bit more time on the psychology of selling. We thought about personality styles. We were recognizing how different people respond to things in different ways, how they have preferences in the way that they think. And so we were able to, or we are able to adapt what it is that we say and do. Yeah, it was a good old session. I love the sales psychology. Yeah, and the fact we've got to tap into their emotion. That's an important part of selling. That's definitely an important part of selling. I always try to think, what are those underlying motivators that people have, and how can we make sure we're fulfilling those as well? I think it stood me in good stead. Well, you've been successful, mate. You've been successful. What about that training we did more recently? The stuff around collaborative selling. So understanding how we can really take this partnering mindset and we can develop that ethos and way of working to really collaborate with customers better, to work with them. I thought that was brilliant. I really did. I loved it. I think about that a lot of the time. And yeah, I really try to apply those 6 elements of partnering skills. I do, but I can never really remember exactly what they are. I know how we need to act, but I can't quite think what they broke down into. Oh, easy, mate. First one's trust. Remember, trust is the foundation for all things. It helps us with communication, and it really ties together all of the other parts, which include win-win focus. So really making sure that we understand mutual benefit. We're able to help customers. We're able to do that, but equally, we get a good deal from it as well. And that talks about how we can then have more grown-up conversations, how we are able to negotiate better and solve problems when if we potentially have conflict, because we do. We're not always going to see eye to eye in customers, but if we've established how that relationship works, we can do that far better. Oh, yeah. That is a big one. It's a big one. I kind of always get that confused with interdependence. Well, they're linked. They're all linked, aren't they? It's part and parcel of very much the same thing. But I think interdependence is more about our success is dependent on other people. So we've got to be able to give up elements of control. So we've got to be able to trust in other people and involve them in the stuff that we do. Yeah, no, you're right. I always think of that as team selling. Team selling seems fair enough to me. Yeah, we've got to bring our own people involved, make sure that they can play a part because we can't do everything ourselves. And the customer, they're going to play such a key role in that. Dead right, dead right. Nah, I'm remembering this. I'm remembering the elements now that they're coming back to me. So, what about the whole self-disclosure and feedback thing? Can you remember that? I can. I remember that if customers aren't helping you, you got to tell them that they're not. You got to give them a hard time. Yeah, I'm not sure he said give them a hard time as such, but you've got to let them know that. Yeah, okay, to be fair, I don't give them a hard time, but I do have open and honest conversations with them. Yeah, I do give them that feedback that they require. if they're not helping us. It's a tough thing to do, isn't it? It is. I'm not sure that all of our colleagues do that. I know some are so intent on building the relationship, they think they can't have that level of conversation with customers. Well, that's short-sighted though, isn't it? Yeah. Surely, if they understand partnering skills, they will recognize that they've got to give enough information and kind of have that clear flow to be able to do the job better. You get that. I get that. I'm not sure everyone does. But certainly, since I've become even clearer with that, I think my relationships have got better. It would do. It would, because we open up the discussions, don't we? We can start to think about, what are we doing longer term? Well, what's our plans for the future? I remember the guy talking about future orientation being an important thing. Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did talk about vision. He talked about working with customers towards that shared goal. So again, bringing in those win-win factors, and really kind of driving towards doing the stuff that is going to make a difference for both parties. And I think an important part of what he was saying was that it's not about really relying on the past all the time. It's not about thinking, oh, we always used to do that, or this won't work, we've tried it before. It's being very open-minded about it. Dead right, because at the end of the day, it's about change, and I think that was one of the elements, wasn't it? Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so if I remember, we have to be comfortable with change because we lead change. We're change drivers. That's it. Go on, carry on. We are change drivers because we're challenging the status quo. Yeah, that's our worst competitor, isn't it? That people will often not want to do something different. They'll kind of be a bit fearful of it. So we've got to help them understand why and understand how they can make changes. Bang on, buddy. Yep, that is totally it. That's totally it. We've got a good solid grounding, haven't we? That we have. Yeah, we do. I reckon we're going to be pretty successful in the future. We are. I'm using this as a really solid basis. I'm going to keep doing more and more of the same. What about yourself? I am. However, I've got some other stuff that I'm going to start to look at. Oh, really? Why? Why are you changing a winning formula? Mate, didn't you just talk about comfort with change and looking to adapt? I did, but I think we've got something that really works. So what is it you're going to do? What is it that you're going to do differently? I'm going to have a look at virtual and video selling. I think that's something that's going to be pretty important. Really? I'm not so sure. Well, I don't know. I think it is. A couple of people are already starting to ask me to talk to them on video conference. Video seems to make sense for me. I don't know yet. I'm going to go away and have a look. I'm going to try and bring it in because I want to keep developing. Yeah, well, I'm not so sure. I think we've got a good solid basis. I think we know a lot of good stuff. I reckon we've got to be able to get in front of customers, see the whites of their eyes, and do the stuff that we do. We've got a basis. It works. Why change a winning formula? Okay, well, yeah, I'm going to have a look. I'll let you know how I get on. Yeah, we ought to meet a bit more often than once every year. Yeah, let's try and do that earlier in the year. And so that was pretty much how the conversation with Harry and Larry went. End of the year 2019, they departed best of mates as before, and we're all set up for a successful 2020.